on Times Radio.
Ghislaine Maxwell is facing life in prison after being found guilty of sex trafficking girls for her former boyfriend Jeffrey Epstein. Having spent more than 500 days at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, her new accommodation may be comparatively luxurious, although her lawyer says she will appeal the verdict. Ghislaine Paperny is a federal prison expert. Hello to you, Justin.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you here. So we've heard a lot now about the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn on Ghislaine Maxwell's account, a cramped place, deeply uncomfortable, plagued by rats. Was it as bad as that?
It is as bad as that. Some people in prison may exaggerate, in part because it may be their first time and they have nothing to compare it to, so it can be awful. In this instance, it's a very difficult place to serve time. As we know, Epstein took his life there, in part probably due to the conditions. For people who have had success and celebrity and come from beautiful homes, to go to any prison is an adjustment, let alone a detention center where you may be locked in a cell 23 hours a day. Tough place to serve time. She'll be happier once she gets to her next prison after she's designated or after she's sentenced.
Right, and the designation process, apparently, that can be quite difficult to live through as well. Is that right?
Her lawyers will try to influence the ultimate designation at her sentencing. The Bureau of Prisons will try to send her to a prison within 500 miles of her release address, though there's no guarantee she'll get the prison of her choosing. She's got to work to find perspective, somehow find a life of meaning and relevance through what could be decades in federal prison. So in the end, it doesn't matter where she goes as much as people think. What really matters is, will she serve her time with dignity and a plan, or will she spend her days complaining and blaming other people?
Right, so give us a bit of a sense of what is in store for Ghislaine Maxwell. What sort of prison conditions may she be living in, conceivably, for the rest of her life?
Well, fortunately, the ultimate prison she'll get to is measurably better than the detention center. In America, there's a lot of these prisons that people will call a club fed because there's no fences or barbed wire. They see a softball track or a tennis ball court. In her case, she will be fenced in a low security prison. However, the open environment remains. There will be opportunities to go to the chaplain, to go to the library, to exercise, to spend her day in a very productive manner. So right now in this detention center, she's essentially locked in a cage all day in a very small, uncomfortable environment. Eventually, she's going to be a part of a very large institution, a correctional complex, and she's going to have a lot of time to be productive, or like I said earlier, to complain. But the conditions are measurably better than what she's enduring right now.
So to an extent, you suggest her future, the quality of her life, to put it that way, is largely, or to an extent, in her own hands. But how far is it in her own hands? What sort of treatment can she expect from her fellow inmates? We're used to stories of sex offenders being treated pretty harshly by their fellow prisoners who have families of their own and take a very dim view of sex crimes. Will she get tough treatment, or will her celebrity and wealth somehow help her?
She could get tougher treatment because of her sex offender status. Certainly sex offenders can be ostracized, ignored, made fun of by both staff and other prisoners. So it's essential she understands that. She views herself in a way that is commensurate with how staff may view her. She may say, I didn't do anything wrong, I'm going to appeal, I'm a law-abiding citizen. That approach, if she adjusts that way, it could be off-putting to people if there's any air of arrogance or something like that. So she has to lay low. She has to understand this environment. She shouldn't try to manipulate this environment. Too many people in prison, especially those, some who come from privilege and wealth, who have gotten everything they've always wanted, they try to influence this environment, and it could lead to problems, disciplinary infractions, time in the hole, a loss of good time credit. Even if she's sentenced to 10, 20, or 30 years in prison, it will not be a life sentence, I don't suspect. So she has to understand that some prisoners may be off-put by her conviction, and she's got to create a plan that avoids trouble and drama at all costs.
Thank you for those insights, Justin. Good to have you on the program. Justin Paperny, there, federal prison expert.